Welcome to the Stoic Quotient, where timeless philosophy meets disruptive technology, where we challenge conformity, awaken critical thought, and reclaim truth, together. This isn't just education, this is your mental emancipation. Today we are discussing why the classroom is a cage and how AI can finally set your mind free. Is our education system truly about learning, or is it subtle brainwashing disguised as wisdom? In this explosive episode of the Stoic Quotient, we expose how traditional classrooms reward obedience, not intelligence, and how AI could finally liberate your mind from the system's invisible chains. If you've ever questioned why you were taught what you were taught, this message is for you. Truth is, you don't need a degree to awaken intelligence. You need clarity, curiosity, and the courage to think for yourself. And with the rise of ethical, bias-aware AI, that revolution is finally here. Have you ever wondered why you were taught what you were taught in school? Why do you memorize dates but never learned how to think? Why were you told to follow rules but never question who wrote them? The truth is hard to swallow, but you weren't educated, you were trained. Trained to obey, to conform, to repeat. And that teacher standing at the front of the room, robe of authority, chalk in hand, voice full of certainty, too often, they weren't a guide to wisdom but a loyal servant to a crumbling system. A system that rewards obedience over originality. A system that punishes curiosity, suffocates independent thought, and silences any voice that dares to color outside the lines. They weren't teaching you to think. They were teaching you to comply, to memorize, to conform, to sit down and shut up, not because they were evil but because they too had been indoctrinated, conditioned to pass down the same mental shackles they unknowingly wore. And so, the cycle continued, generation after generation, brilliance dimmed by blind tradition. The Stoics saw education not as information but as transformation. Not the accumulation of facts, but the cultivation of character. For the Stoics, like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, education was a sacred duty, not to train the memory but to liberate the soul from ignorance, illusion, and emotional chaos. Let's stop pretending education is neutral. Every teacher steps into the classroom carrying invisible baggage, biases woven into their very identity. Political leanings that shade every lesson, religious beliefs that silently influence what's praised and what's condemned, cultural assumptions that define what's normal and what's foreign, emotional wounds that leak into how they treat students, who they uplift and who they belittle. And the most dangerous part? Most of them don't even know they're doing it. They speak with the voice of authority, not realizing they're echoing the same flawed ideologies passed down to them. They believe they're shaping minds for the better, when in reality, they're often molding students into distorted replicas of themselves, embedding prejudice under the mask of professionalism, and calling it education. But over time, those biases shape your mind. They tell you what's normal, what's smart, what's acceptable, and slowly, without even realizing it, you inherit someone else's limitations. Education becomes indoctrination. And you begin to mistake memorization for wisdom, obedience for intelligence, and silence for respect. Let's look into the ego of the educator. Let's call it out. Many professors aren't teaching, they're performing. Their identity depends on being the expert. They crave validation, they want control, and they punish dissent, not with fists, but with grades, shame, and exclusion. The result? Genius gets crushed. Curiosity gets mocked. And originality dies in silence. The silent cost of conformity. How many students sat in classrooms and felt like outsiders? How many were told they don't fit the mold? Maybe you were one of them. They didn't fail because they lacked intelligence. They failed because the system never honored their kind of mind. And the worst part? The world loses out on their potential. Because education became a cage, not a launch pad. Enter AI, a new era of mentorship. But now something massive is shifting. AI, when used with clarity and ethical vision, can change everything. AI isn't here to replace teachers. It's here to expose bad ones. It's here to decentralize knowledge, to unchain the learner, to make education yours again. Imagine this, a mentor that never gets tired, never shames you, never injects its ego, a guide that adapts to your pace, your values, your way of thinking. Want to learn philosophy through African wisdom? Done. Want to study economics through a Stoic lens? Possible. Want a breakdown of modern politics without the CNN or Fox filter? That's the power of AI, when it's trained to serve truth, not propaganda. AI can expose bias and liberate minds. AI can highlight bias instead of hiding it. It can say, this source is rooted in Western liberalism. This curriculum omits indigenous perspectives. This theory has been challenged by newer neuroscience. Now imagine if you'd had that level of insight in college. You wouldn't just pass exams, you'd awaken. But here's the warning. If AI is built by biased institutions, it can become another brainwashing tool, only smarter. That's why we must fight for open-source learning models. AI that learns from diverse, global, ancient, and modern knowledge bases. Not just what's approved by corporations or governments, because when AI is free, you become free. The big idea, education as awakening. The point of learning was never to fit in, it was to wake up. AI gives us a chance to return to the roots of real education, Socratic questioning, radical curiosity, diverse wisdom, and liberation of the mind. The future of learning isn't in ivory towers, it's not in overpriced degrees. It's in your hands, if you're brave enough to ask better questions. At the Stoic Quotient, we don't follow the curriculum, we challenge it. We don't settle for answers, we interrogate the entire system. And we don't glorify AI, we use it as a weapon against ignorance. If this message struck a nerve, share it. If you're tired of being told what to think, subscribe, because the next generation of thought leaders won't come from lecture halls, they'll come from clarity, from courage, from you. This is the Stoic Quotient, where your mind is your revolution, and education becomes liberation. Thanks for watching.